Chiefs matchup week. Welcome back on behalf of the Niner Station, Ryan, Mark, and myself. Let's kick things off, boys. How are you?
Tommy, Mark, I'm doing really good. In fact, I'm really excited because it is Chiefs week. One of those games that when we saw the calendar get released, we marked it on the calendar, circled it on the calendar, and here we are, week 7, Super Bowl rematch. Can't wait to get into it, boys. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, what's up, guys? You can't be more excited than a Super Bowl rematch against the Chiefs. Obviously, they've kind of been a thorn in our leg here the past, actually, since Shanahan took over. But there's really 3 key things I'm looking for in this game that's going to be a big impact in us winning this game. So the first one is Puni against Chris Jones. Can he be the difference maker on that offensive line and kind of shut down, maybe not shut down, but limit Chris Jones' impact on this game? Because he really killed us in the Super Bowl last year. Shanahan versus Spagnuolo, that's obviously a huge matchup. Shanahan has struggled against him, especially since he's been with the Chiefs, but even throughout his whole career. And then the last one, which is pretty interesting, we talked about the Niners' red zone failures this year and their struggles they've had down there, but the Chiefs are also struggling. The Niners are ranked 25th in the league, and the Chiefs are ranked 29th. So those are kind of 3 things I'm looking for in this matchup. So let's hear what we have to say about this game, guys.
I think you brought up a really good topic to start with. Let's go Chris Jones versus Puni. Now, one thing that all 49er fans have noticed is Chris Jones doesn't normally just line up anymore as a nose or defensive tackle. He actually goes all over the line. But it's going to be those key matchups where he's more than likely going to avoid Trent Williams. So you can kind of limit where he's going to be. And when he is going against Puni, or if our blocking scheme puts Puni against him for a pulling play or anything like that, can he out-muscle, out-physical Chris Jones, who's a big dude? And unfortunately for us, we actually did have the opportunity to draft Chris Jones, and we didn't take him, right? Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. That's a whole different topic. But when we're talking about a key player, Chris Jones is the only person, and Karlaftis, I think, on the defense, that we're going to be really focusing on. And Chris Jones, though, is a game breaker. He's kind of like Aaron Donald in a sense, right? Where he plays all over the line. And what he does is he creates pressures. He makes plays in the run game. He does it all as a defensive lineman. You can't ask any more out of a defensive lineman than what the Chiefs get out of Chris Jones. And the 49ers are going to have a lot of trouble against him. But can Puni be that difference maker? I hope so. I think so far Puni has shown, I think his PFF grade's pretty high, but he has shown that he can match up against NFL's best and do really well.
Yeah, it's going to be such an interesting matchup just because we are so familiar with Chris Jones. He's been dominant in the league for many years now, and especially against us as the 49ers. It's going to be interesting because last week against the Seahawks, they didn't really bring the pressure a whole lot. They've only blitzed about 20% of the time last week against us. However, it's going to be a different go-around with the Chiefs because they actually have a 34% blitz rate, which is 6% higher than the league average. So we're going to see a lot of blitzes, and Chris Jones, he's responsible for half of the sacks that the team has. The Kansas City Chiefs have 6 sacks. Chris Jones is responsible for 3. So our boy Dominic Puni is going to have a tough challenge in front of him. So far, the rookie's been nothing but impressive this entire season so far. But man, if he can hold his own against Chris Jones, and if he could be a key reason why we could establish the run game, man, I can't wait to see what the future has in store for this young rookie. But he has to play the game first, and let's see if he can handle it.
Yeah, Puni had a great game last week against the Seahawks, who have 2 high-quality defensive tackles. And I'm really excited to see what he can do against Chris Jones. He's had a stellar start to his rookie season. I would argue he's probably an all-pro rookie right now. He's probably going to make that team if it continues to play. And if he can show out against Chris Jones, he's really going to put his name on the map there as a top young guard in this league. Chris Jones is a stud. The past 10 years has been Aaron Donald 1, and Chris Jones, you could argue, is a 1B, not even a 2 as far as the top D tackles. Now that Donald's retired, Chris Jones is definitely the top defensive tackle in the league. He's getting older, right? So he probably is slowing down to where he was when he came into the league in the past few years, but he's still a presence on that defensive line. He makes an impact, especially in big games. And last year, Chris Jones cost us the Super Bowl. We did not block him on the last play in the overtime on third down before we kicked the field goal, and that cost us the game, in my opinion. And I think Puni would have been there to pick him up. I don't think Puni would have just let him get a free rush to Purdy. We've seen Puni block 2 guys at once this year, and so I think his presence up there is going to help us out a lot. And it's also going to be a huge impact in the run game, right? We don't know if Jordan Mason's going to be there. So if that is Garindo back there getting the bulk of the carries, and he's going to have to open up those holes because we've talked about Grindo not being able to find those holes the way that Jordan Mason and McCaffrey have in the past. And so Puni is going to be a huge impact in the run game, blocking Chris Jones, opening up those holes, and also in the passing game. Ryan, you brought up Spagnuolo's blitz rate. It'll be interesting to see what he does this year against him because last year, he blitzed Purdy a lot. And I think he even mentioned in some podcasts and some interviews after the Super Bowl that he really impressed Spagnuolo on how he handled the blitzes that he was bringing to him. And it's interesting, too, is I just saw a stat before we got on the podcast. Last year, teams were blitzing Purdy a lot. And this year, teams have seemed to cut down on the blitz and make Purdy throw into tighter windows, which is kind of reflective in the stats that Purdy's had this year, throwing into those tight windows because teams are dropping more in coverage, saying, okay, you're really good at reading the blitz, getting out the ball. Let's see if we can force him into some tight throws and make some mistakes. And he hasn't made those mistakes yet, but he's going against a top defensive coordinator in the league. And so Puni's going to have to step up big for us on the offensive line. And Thomas, you said he's probably going to be veering away from Trent Williams. Well, that's going to mean he's going to be on Puni's side of the ball. So that's going to be a big matchup. And then speaking of the Spagnuolo defense, do you think Shanahan's finally going to figure out how to handle this defense and maybe have some success against them? Or do you think it's going to be another struggle for the 49ers offense?
I'd like to be a Homer fan here and say that we're going to have it handled. To be honest, if we're looking at what happened in the Super Bowl, they got guys like Nick Bolton, their linebacker number 32, that's really fast. He's all over the field. They have George Karlaftis at defensive end who's playing arguably, not as good as Bosa, but he's applying pressure. Kind of in the same way, he's dominant. He's doing his thing at the end and kind of locking down one side, right? Even if they go Chris Jones and Karlaftis at the ends, it's a tough matchup. Kyle Shanahan historically, in the last 4 matchups, we're 0-4. And I think that's the biggest thing. We could look at historically, as Kyle Shanahan was an offensive coordinator and a head coach against him and what he's done. It's not great, but the thing is I like to look at the most recent matchups, and we're 0 in the most recent matchups. 2 of them being the Super Bowl, 2 being regular season games. One of those being Christian McCaffrey's first game as well with us. And so can we get away from, corners like Trent McDuffie? He's shutting down people left and right. They don't have Snead anymore, but they have Jalen Watson, who is kind of like their version of Deommodore Lenoir. He's playing great football and he's not getting the credit that he's due. I think it's going to come down to, can our receivers create separation against those corners? Because in the Super Bowl, we couldn't. I know you guys saw the same thing as I did. And then also the running game, like you mentioned, with people disrupting up front, if Jordan Mason's not starting and we don't have clear and obvious holes and we don't establish a run, it's going to be tough sledding for the Niners offense.
I want to quickly stat correct myself. I said Chris Jones had 3 out of 6 sacks, 3 out of 9. Still a third of the sacks, still pretty crazy. But back to the point, I think if the 49ers really are going to be successful against this defense, we've talked about it in the past couple pods now, but it's the red zone offense. We need to score touchdowns and not be kicking as many field goals. And not to mention it, we're not even sure what's going on with our kicker situation. I think he's still questionable at the moment. So even more important that once we're in the red zone, we do need to capitalize, because on the other side, if Patrick Mahomes is in the red zone, he's going to cash it in.
Yeah,
that's
I think
good point.
Yeah, for sure. He has cashed it in, and I do trust Andy Reid to dial up some creative plays in the red zone against us. The Chiefs are only scoring 39% touchdown percentage in the red zone this year. So they're actually doing worse than the 49ers, who had a 44%. But I think when it comes to playing Spagnuolo's defense, Shanahan's been conservative in the past. I remember the first Super Bowl, right? We got the ball before halftime. We kind of just ran the clock out and we're happy with the lead. And then there are some calls in the last Super Bowl where it's like, Shanahan, why are you being so conservative? You have McCaffrey, you have this explosive offense. Go for it. And I think a key for the Niners this week against Spagnuolo is it's early in the year, right? It's week 7, so it's earlier in the year, but it's not a must win. It's not a must win, but it's not like the season's over if you lose. So I'd like to see Shanahan get aggressive on 4th and short, steal some drives. One of the ways you beat the Chiefs is you keep Mahomes off the field, right? And so the way to keep Mahomes off the field is don't settle for long field goals. Don't settle for punts when you're at, the opponent's 40 trying to cross the 50-yard line. What you want to do is you want to, in 4th and 4, 4th and 3, go for it in those situations. If you don't get it, trust your defense, right? The Chiefs have been struggling in the red zone, like we just said, but you have to put pressure on this defense to stop us on 4 downs and not 3 downs in key situations. So that's something what I want to see a change from Shanahan against Spagnuolo this week is on those 4th and short situations, 4 or less, let's go for it and put pressure on their defense because Andy Reid's going to do that against us.
And ironically, what actually almost works in our favor in that exact sense of the game, Mark and Ryan, is if we have uncertainty at the kicker position, what we saw against the Cardinals was we started to go for it. It was 4th and long, and we were going for it. And I hate to say it, it's going to be a close game. We need those 3 points. It's going to come, they have a way better kicker. Bucker can make a 50-plus yard field goal most of the time. So if they're getting 3 points and we're getting 0, we have to be aggressive on those 4th downs to continue to keep the defense on the field. That's going to change their trajectory overall, right? Their defensive line is going to be tired. If we're doing hurry-up offense, they're not going to be able to sub. We can do a lot of things that's going to give us a little bit of an advantage as we move forward. But it's going to come down to separation for the wide receivers, right? Brandon Ayuk and Debo in the Super Bowl didn't do anything. They couldn't get open, right? Brandon Ayuk took it personally, like it was almost his fault that we lost because he didn't have high stats. But realistically, neither of them were open most of the time. There was a few plays here and there where Purdy could have hit him, but I think what you're saying is correct, right? If we can figure out how to be more aggressive on 4th down, and one thing that we do have as an advantage, or not as an advantage, but I think that Patrick Mahomes and Purdy both have that same ability where if they go for it on third and long or 4th and short or whatever the situation may be to continue to move that offensive drive, is they both can scramble. So which defense can do better? And I think Purdy this season is running a lot better than Patrick Mahomes. I think Purdy is going to extend a few drives for us. And we're going to need that because we have uncertainty at the kicking position. So we can't just if we're on the 40 and we had Moody, we would kick a long field goal, but we don't. We just signed a kicker as a backup plan. So I'm hoping that because of the kicking situation on the Niners side, we are more aggressive because we have to be, not because Kyle Shanahan wants to be. But it is either way. At the end of the day, it's the result that we're hoping for is Kyle Shanahan being aggressive.
Yeah, Mark, to touch on your point, good call out there. I kind of just assume it's Patrick Mahomes. He's going to cash it in if he's in the red zone. But actually, Niners are 25th in red zone percentage, and the Chiefs are actually worse than us. So it's crazy. And when you think about it, Patrick Mahomes this year, he's threw 6 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So it's not like he's been perfect too.
Yeah, and the other thing about going for it on 4th down is, our special teams is going to give up a long return. So if you miss one of those 4th downs, well, hey, maybe that would have been the punt that we give up a punt return or, something big where they're going to get the ball in good field position anyway. So that's where I see it as like you have nothing to lose. Your special teams has not been successful. So leave the offense. The offense is the best portion of the team right now. Out of all 3 phases, the offense is the best portion. I know the Chiefs defense is the top defense, but you got to put pressure on them. And that's something I do notice, like with teams like the Bills and the Ravens, they will do that against the Chiefs because they just know that you can't play conservative against Mahomes because if you give Mahomes any life, he's gonna stomp on your throat and just end the game. So I think aggression on 4th down is going to be huge. Like you said, Thomas, if it's 4th and short and no one's open, I trust Purdy to scramble and get those 3 or 4 yards to get the first down. And those are just backbreakers, like because the defense starts to get tired, they start to doubt themselves. You get your defense a little more rest on your side of the ball to where they're on the sidelines for at least 3 or 4 more plays. So that's going to be, to me, a big key in this game and something I'm going to be looking for. Speaking of keys in the game, Mason has been wearing the blue jersey at practice. He's dealing with that AC joint sprain. He's already kind of had some ball security issues. He's put the ball on the ground a few times. Luckily, he's been able to recover it, and we haven't lost many of those fumbles. Do you think they're going to push Mason in this game with that AC joint sprain, or do you think they're going to let the other guys get a lot of the carries?
I think the first quarter is going to be really telling. As someone I had a grade 2 AC joint separation when I played rugby in college, and you end up really having to favor the other side because if you fall on the side that sprained, for me it was my right side, that pain hurts and it knocks you out for a while. And I think we didn't want to risk it against the Seahawks because I think we were confident enough that we could continue to lead and win. But against the Chiefs, we can almost assume that it's going to end up being a closer game. So can we limit Jordan Mason's carries in the first and second quarter so that way we can use him at the second half of the game? Otherwise, I mean, I don't know. I just don't see Garendo and Patrick Taylor Jr. being able to create that kind of the same momentum that Jordan Mason always provides, right? He averages close to 5 yards a carry in most games, and he has that back-breaking we're going to continually on second down, we're going to be getting first down carries, right? We're not necessarily getting that when Garendo has this, he'll get you that 140 or 70-yard rush, but he's not going to continually get first downs like we do see from Jordan Mason.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because remember, coming out of the half of the Seahawks game, Jordan Mason actually did get that one run, and he looked pretty good coming out the half, but he ended up, I think, re-injuring his shoulder again, and you just saw him kind of stretching it out the rest of the game on the sideline. And Tommy, if you think that they're going to test it out and see how it goes, I'm curious to see, how, what if it's a similar situation. You give him a few run in the beginning, and turns out he's kind of sore again. We're gonna have to turn to Garendo and Patrick Taylor. And kind of speaking on a personal level with all of us, I know that you're a Jordan Mason fantasy manager. So if that were the case, man, that would put you in a pickle.
I'm planning on starting Jordan Mason either way. I think I'd rather him start and not put up points than me bench him for someone else, which I do have Nick Chubb coming off of injury, so that's also a possible start there in a couple leagues. And I have other options like J.K. Dobbins, another league. But, for those of our listeners that aren't aware of what an AC joint is, it's your shoulder blade and your collarbone. And like I said, it's playable in his sprain. I think they didn't say officially grade 1, but if it was grade 2, he definitely wouldn't be playing this week. You can't really raise your arm in a grade 2.
So it's like a pain tolerance type of thing.
Yes, it's a pain tolerance type injury. And I guess what we can say is one thing I can almost assume is he's probably not going to be able to make any catches that aren't right on the money, because he's not going to be able to raise his arm like he used to. And again, if he falls on the wrong side hard, there is a possibility it becomes a grade 2 and then he's out. So it's all about how he can, handle the tackles and which way he twists his body when he goes down. He's got to be smart, and that's not something that you're used to doing as a running back, right? He's used to being physical and going down however which way it happens. Mm-hmm. But with this type of injury, he really has to favor his other side. He really has to mentally make those adjustments, and I just don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I was listening to Dr. Pondia. I think he goes on 95.7 The Great Game and talks about Niners injuries. And he said it's not really an injury you have to worry about really making any worse. What it is strictly pain tolerance. And with the way that he runs the ball, he puts a lot of impact on those shoulders because he lowers his head and goes through contact. So I think that's going to be something to watch and to see if they give him some touches early and then, he kind of bows out, kind of like he did in the second half of the Seahawks game. But if he gets rolling, maybe they just roll with him, or maybe it's less of a workload. And so it's certain situations they get him in there just to kind of get those 3 or 4 yards and get him out to get a breather. We have some other injuries we need to watch for too is Travis Ward. I know he loves playing against his old team in the Chiefs, and he did really well last year in the Super Bowl, I thought. But he hasn't been playing his top ball this year. I know he's kind of been struggling with some injuries. What do you guys think he's going to do this week against the Chiefs?
It's mainly been his knee, right? And that's what got keyed on in the past. And what I would be worried about is the Chiefs knowing that he's not as fast as he should be and putting him against Xavier Worthy. But at the same time, is an injured Charvarius Ward better than Isaac Yiadom against Xavier Worthy? I'd probably say yes.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I want to think that a player playing against his old team, there's that added motivation factor. But like you were saying, Tommy, if you're fresh off an injury and you're testing out, can he handle the speed? And speed kills. So that's going to be a telling thing. But great point. Who else do we have instead of Charvarius Ward? Yiadom. So if that's the case, Ward going against his old team, assuming he's healthy, I'm excited to see what he can do out there, or what he will do out there.
Yeah, Thomas, you brought up the exact guy I was thinking of, in Xavier Worthy. We struggle to cover guys with speed. We saw it with Tutu Atwell. If we can't cover Tutu Atwell, I don't know if we're going to be able to cover Xavier Worthy, because he's not much. They're pretty much the same size, I think. But I think Xavier Worthy is a little bit faster. So the guy I would like to see on the field, if Charvarius is not 100%, is Ronaldo Green. They're both rookies, right? So you can't say, he's got the veteran experience. And Ronaldo Green is that dog. At Florida State, he took the best receivers that they were playing against every single time. He played man. He knows how to be physical. And if Worthy does line up on Lenore's side, I'm not worried about Lenore. I think Lenore is not going to let him get off the ball. He's going to press him. He's going to throw him to the ground and be like, welcome to the big leagues. You got to hit the weight room in the offseason, kid. But if Travis Ward is not 100%, I would love to see Renardo Green get a shot against Xavier Worthy, because that Andy Reid is going to take at least 3 or 4 deep shots down the field to Xavier Worthy and try to put pressure on our defensive backs that have been struggling this year with the deep ball. And so that's the guy I would like to see if Travis Ward is not out there. And maybe even the veteran, playing some safety, the guy that we just signed, Adrian Amos. What do you guys think about him? Do you think he's going to make an impact in this game, or do you think he's probably going to take a couple weeks to get accustomed to the defensive scheme?
I think more realistically, we're going to let Mustafa play a little bit more again. I think that in this game, we need any person that can create a turnover to be in this game, because the turnover differential is going to be a key part of this game, right? We don't have a kicker. Game's going to be close. Our red zone conversion's good, but it's not perfect. And so we know that the Chiefs are going to be able to walk away with 3 points if they get close, and we might not be able to. And so it's going to come down to who can we get on the field that is a playmaker, right? I'd love to see Bernardo Green play. You're absolutely correct. But let's be honest. We know that Yadam's still going to start, which sucks. And the other report, going into this, the Niner Station, we've talked about it. Isaac Yadam and Campbell are absolute liabilities in coverage. And this week, one thing I want to talk about is we're going against Travis Kelce. The Chiefs are very limited at wide receiver, right? In their world, if they had Rashee Rice this game, I'm very worried about. Without Rashee Rice, their number one receiver is going to be Xavier Worthy making a big play, or Juju Smith-Schuster. He's not bad, but he's also not a Rashee Rice. They have Mecole Hardman still, but, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, I think our corners can handle those players. And so what it's really going to come down to is can Travis Kelce be the veteran, the Travis Kelce of old, and not the Travis Kelce in fantasy football that put up 5 points a week, right? I mean, is Travis Kelce going to be, if Travis Kelce's matched up against Campbell, we're in trouble.
Tommy, that was one of the matchups that scared me too, was Travis Kelce, and actually excites me too, because on the other side, we're just going to see great tight end play on both sides of the ball. George Kittle, Travis Kelce back to back. That's going to be awesome. But focusing on Travis Kelce against our defense, the Niners last week gave up 65 yards to Noah Fant. And that's Noah Fant. That's not Travis Kelce right there. Despite Travis Kelce only averaging 5 catches a game, around 45 yards a game too this season, we know what he could do in the past, and he's torched us before in the past. So I'm not going to put anything besides, or I'm not going to try to limit Travis Kelce or think any less of him because of the season he's having. He's a legitimate threat out there, and Campbell is the liability we know him to be. So I'm really I'm curious to see how the defense is going to, handle those weapons. Like you said, no Rashee Rice, but I mean, they have Juju Smith-Schuster. He's familiar with the system. Patrick Mahomes seems to compliment him in interviews, give him high praise, say he knows where he needs to be. He's actually a leader out there. So they have a pretty potent offense still. I'm curious to see how the defense handles Travis Kelce and those boys.
Yeah, Travis Kelce is going to be a factor. I mean, last year in the Super Bowl, as soon as Greenlaw went out of the game, I think Kelce had 1 catch in the first half. And then in the second half, 8 catches? And Andy Reid saw that. Andy Reid's going to exploit that. As soon as Oren Burke went in the game, it was just a mismatch nightmare. He was putting him in motion, getting him matched up on Oren Burke. And he's going to do the same thing as long as Devondre Campbell's on the field. Right.
Yeah, I saw a quick point. I'm not sure if Mark, something you just said kind of put a trigger in my head. Like Andy Reid picking on someone. We just talked about Adrian Amos playing safety potentially. Now we made an assumption that Mustafa is playing, but he's actually kind of still injured with that low ankle injury. So like there's a very good chance he doesn't play, and if he doesn't play, we're out there with just George Odom, Jalen Mahoney, and now Adrian Amos at safety. So if I see that in the injury report that Mustafa, our rookie, is out, hey, if I'm Andy Reid, man, I'm dialing some plays to pick on this guy. So when you said that, Andy Reid getting creative, picking on people, finding weak spots, man, that's kind of what I just thought of right now too.
Yeah, when I said Adrian Amos was going to play, because I wasn't sure Mustafa. I knew he was hurt, so I wasn't sure if he was going to play. And like you said, Mahoney's a rookie. Odom's a special teams guy. At least Amos has 10 years experience in this league and has actually made plays when he's been out. I know he's older, but he's a guy that is not going to make rookie mistakes or, dumb mistakes. He's a savvy vet who is good in coverage. So yeah, you're right. I think that's why I thought Adrian Amos. I know he's new to the team, just got signed this week, but might have a shot to play.
And also, one thing that we haven't necessarily mentioned, or at least we talked about it before the pod, is Andy Reid coming out of a bye. His record is what, like 24-1?
21-4, I believe.
21-4. And we're talking about Andy Reid coming out of a bye. Now, granted, we got a mini bye with the Thursday night game, so maybe we had enough preparation to kind of reduce that advantage. But at the same time, if your number one player is going to be Travis Kelce in the game and you're scheming for it, you line him up on Fred Warner's side, you motion him to the other side. The Niners can't switch their linebackers mid-play, and then it's either, is the safety going to be able to cover him or not, right? Amos, you're right, as a veteran, the thing about coming in and playing safety, you don't have to know all of the stuff that the Niners would do. You just have to play safety. It's kind of like if you were to get, picked up as a D end or a D tackle. You have to understand a blitz play, or you have to understand the call, but the game is the exact same. It's not like learning offense. Offense is way harder to come in and start at because there's so many more intricacies going on. But on defense, unless we're blitzing, and then all you do is learn the blitz plays, right? Because that only happens at a low percentage of time. You're basically just doing your job. That's the goal. Could he play decently? I hope so. I mean, you're right, though. There is a good chance that Mustafa isn't the starter because of the ankle sprain, because that's something that would affect his ability to cover a guy like Travis Kelce. So I am kind of curious to see how this plays out, right? Andy Reid is going to have a game plan that he has been dialing in for days, right? He was probably working on it. One, he's just taking his Super Bowl game plan and just tweaking it, because it's not like, we've changed dramatically, right? We're still running pretty similar schemes. So he's going to be able to take what he's done before successfully with 14 days to prepare? It's these are the things, again, these are the keys to victory or the keys to a loss, right? These are things that we're going to talk about in our instant reaction, because they're kind of obvious as a fan. So yeah, the Travis Kelce thing and who we can match up with him, whether that is a linebacker or a safety, because it's going to be one of the two. It's likely not going to be a corner unless they also dial up things or Travis Kelce's out wide. But we'll find out.
Guys, I really hope we get this win, just because I've been listening to some interviews like today, yesterday, Fred Warner talking about the Chiefs, Nick Bosa talking about the Chiefs. And man, it seems like even today I was hearing on 95.7 The Game, people were thinking that like, if we win this game, like we could get the monkey off our back in some ways, because it's one of those things. Like imagine if we see them again in the playoffs and they get us in the regular season. It's just like one of those monkeys on our back, kind of like Steve Young back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be confident against a team that's kind of owned you in the Shanahan era, right? Like
Yeah.
Grant Cohn made a funny comment, like, you can be as confident as you are as a guy, but after asking 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 girls out and they reject you, you start kind of thinking, oh, what's wrong with me, right? You start getting in your head regardless of the confidence you had before that. And that's kind of the situation you got to think the Niners are in, right? They've come out, they've had their best game plan, they've had some really good teams, and they just can't seem to beat this team. And, I go to Sprouts most days during the week to get myself a little energy drink, and the cashier there, she's an older lady, she's a Niners fan, and we always talk about the game, and she's like, how are you feeling about this game? And I said, not very, very good, right? I said, I would love to see a win, to be a great thing, but I can't go into a game against the Chiefs feeling confident that we're going to win. The last time they came to the Niners home in Santa Clara after a Super Bowl, I think they beat us like 40-something to 17. It was not a good showing. So my confidence level going into this game is not high, but, at some point you got to, like you said, Ryan, get the monkey off your back like Steve Young did. And if they can beat this team, I think it can catapult from here, right? Because then you get the Cowboys next, and then who aren't playing well. Then you get your bye, and then you kind of go into that stretch, Buccaneers and those teams. And I think those are all teams that we can beat. And so if we can win this game, it could be a catapult to, like a 6-7 game winning streak, in my opinion. If we lose the game, okay, yeah, we still got the Cowboys who we kind of own, like the Chiefs own us since Shanahan got here. But this game right here, if we can somehow find a way to win it, ugly, blowout, come from behind, whatever it may be, I think can be a huge catapult going into the rest of the season in the playoffs and kind of bring that swagger back that we've kind of lost since the Ravens game last year.
The Chiefs have definitely owned us, and you're absolutely right. I mean, this game could be something that changes the trajectory of the rest of the season, right? Beating the Seahawks is cool, right? And then our other losses we've lost, but if anyone's listened to our previous podcast, Ryan and I have been overly confident against a lot of teams. Mark has been the voice of reason, and I can tell you right now, I'm on Mark's side 100%. I think Ryan is as well, that I'm skeptical about this game, but I think we're pretty evenly matched up if you look at the pros and cons of both teams. The only thing I'm really worried about is Patrick Mahomes going to get the Tom Brady calls, and it's more of not
with
if,
Tom Brady calling the game.
Yeah, with Tom Brady calling the game. How's Tom Brady going to talk about it? That'll be fun. But it's more of how many situations or how many of the Tom Brady calls, I guess, again, we can call them Patrick Mahomes calls now, is he going to get, right? Is the Chiefs' offensive line actually going to get a holding call? I mean, these are things that are going to affect the outcome of the game, right? It's 3rd and long. We know there's going to be PIs that aren't really PIs. But we also know that if it's against Yadam and Campbell, it might really be a PI. But, how many of these little things, that's kind of what I hate, that it's going to the things that I'm worried about the most, right, is I know it's going to be a closer game. Whether we have the lead and we blow it, or we come back and then we keep it close. We don't have a kicker that can nail a long field goal if we need it. And the Patrick Mahomes stuff. So, it's the little things that are going to make a huge difference in this game that I don't think regular fans going to watch it, just look at the score and see what's happening. But true Niner fans are going to see oh, we got a PI where we shouldn't have gotten a PI, or Nick Bosa got chokeholded, and brought to the ground again, and there's not a holding call, which there's so much game film on in the Super Bowl and in the regular season games against the Chiefs. Those things kind of give me anxiety moving into this week.
Yeah, this is a game, the Chiefs are actually pretty injured on the offensive line. I'm pretty sure they're down to their 3rd tackle on one side, or the rookie that they just drafted. So this is a game where you put the bat signal out for Nick Bosa. Hey, Nick Bosa, you have 3 sacks this year. I would love to see you double that number in one. Give me 3 more. Get to 6 at the end of this game. If Nick Bosa can have a huge game, then that would be a huge, huge success for the 49ers, and I think could be the difference, right? He obviously gets held. Hopefully I'm sure he said it in an interview somewhere out there. What do you think about the Chiefs? They hold a lot. I'm sure he said it again. There needs Shanahan should have sent every single holding from the Super Bowl to the league office this week and said, hey, you guys blew a call on a punt last week. Why don't we get a couple makeup calls here where if there's a holding, you actually call it, please, because Patrick Mahomes is good enough without his offensive lineman holding. Nick Bosa needs to be able to rush a passer without getting tackled. So I would love to see a 3-sack performance from Nick Bosa.
Yeah, and let me add on to that. How about we also see some contribution on the other side from our free agent signing, Leonard Floyd, since the little bear himself is going to be held, like you said. I mean, what a time for Leonard Floyd to capitalize on the situation. We brought you in, and what a time to make an impact and to prove your value. And if you could get a sack on Mahomes this game, man, that would be so huge for us.
Absolutely. I mean, again, Mark, you brought up something that I wasn't even thinking about. A couple makeup calls would be great for the fumble. Literally, I mean, it clearly hit his thumb, and the NFL's excuse is we didn't give the refs the same game film that you guys see as fans. What world are we living in? How come they don't get how are they not getting the same view that we are getting an instant replay?
From Amazon too?
They didn't pay for their Amazon Prime membership. That's why they didn't have it.
They're being cheap.
Man, that $14.99 a month is just too much for the NFL. You know what they had? They had a commercial. They had the commercial break during it. But, yeah, I hate to say it, but these are the things that are going to make the difference in the game. I think if anything, we're going to be able to watch a great football game. I just, as a Niner fan, obviously want to see us come on top for once, right? We need to continue the momentum from an away victory against the Seahawks into a victory against the Chiefs, into a game against the Cowboys, who are going to be without, why am I blanking out on his name? They're
Micah Parsons.
They're going to be without Micah Parsons, right? We're looking at the path to an actual chance at a Super Bowl after not having it, right? Because we were talking about how our NFC records is trash, right? We lose to the Cardinals, we lose to the Rams, we lose to the Vikings. We're expecting to be 5-1 at this point, and we very well could have been, right? We're only a few plays away from being 5-1 right now, and actually clearly being the number 1 seed in the NFC. Right now, I think analysts are saying the Niners are the best team in the NFC still, but our record doesn't show that. And a win this week would definitely make a huge difference. One thing I totally forgot to mention, fans and listeners of the Niner Station, is if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. You're going to get content like this once or twice a week, and it's going to make your week. So like and subscribe this video, or like this video, subscribe to our channel.
And tell a friend.
Yeah, share it on Instagram. Share it on YouTube. Who knows?
Share an enemy. Send it to a Chiefs fan.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I know for a fact I'll be sending this video, this recording, to a few of my good Chiefs fan friends who've been talking smack since the first Super Bowl loss, where I almost cried, and they were with me at the Super Bowl party. So I don't know, guys. What else do we have to say here? We got a big game coming up, and we've kind of covered most of the bases here. What else do we have to go over here? I think that's it.
Oh, I think we covered everything. Now it's just time to go out there and play the game. So I'm excited. Let's go Niners.
Yeah, let's do it. I think it was Kittle that said these are the games you play for, right? These are the games you play football for. So, as much doubt that might be in their head, they're going to come out fired up with the Levi's crowd behind them. I'm pretty sure, Ryan, you're going to be there. So we're going to have to save that instant reaction for maybe another day. So stay tuned for that. But Ryan's going to be there to give us an insight of what it was like in Levi's Stadium. And then Tommy and I will give you what we thought from the TV version. But I'm definitely excited for this football game. I think it is going to be a good football game. And hopefully the Niners can get the monkey off their back, Steve Young style, and pull out a victory.
Totally agree, guys. Actually, I think I 100% at least have this Sunday off, so I'll get to watch the game in live, and it'll be awesome. So Mark and I will be texting. Ryan will be ignoring our texts in our group chat. But for those of you that have listened this long, thank you again for being a fan of the Niner Station and showing support. We really appreciate it as we're trying to grow our channel and continue to spread the word of the 49ers and our insights, right? We're trying to create a different listening experience than you're going to get from the regular analysts that talk about the Niners every week. So thank you again. And with that, boys, bang, bang.